Joseph Parker is an undefeated heavyweight prospect from New Zealand. He's only 22 years old. Currently, his record is 11-0 with 9 KOs. A lot of people over the past year or so have been hassling me to make a video about Joseph Parker and tell me what I think of him. And I apologize to those people for taking this long. I've seen quite a few of Joseph Parker's fights over the past year or so. And my impressions of him, I like his jab. I think he's got good hand speed. He's a decent size for a heavyweight. He's 6'4", so not exactly tall by today's heavyweight standards, but still tall enough to be relevant in the division. Like I say, like his hand speed, like his jab. I'd like to see a bit more head movement from him. Definitely like to see more head movement. His feet also are decent, but I think he could evolve his footwork a little bit. I think it's a little bit too predictable, but you know, he's decent. He's a good heavyweight prospect. And one thing I can say for him is that for a guy who's only 11-0, he's fought a pretty decent level of opposition. Okay. Yes, the guys he's fought are either journeymen or they're over the hill, but it's still a pretty decent level of opposition for a guy who's only had 11 fights. If you compare his level of opposition to Anthony Joshua, for example, Joseph Parker has definitely fought a better level of opposition. He's only had 2 more fights than Joshua. Joshua's had 9 fights and Joseph Parker's had 11. But Parker's definitely fought better opposition than Joshua. Just to go through a couple of the guys he's fought, he fought Francois Botha, stopped him in 2 rounds. Obviously, Botha is a former heavyweight champion, way past his best. We know that. But still, that's a good name to have on your resume when you've only had 11 fights. He fought Marcel Nascimento, who's a Brazilian guy who Tyson Fury stopped a few years ago. Okay, he's a big guy, Nascimento, 6'5". So he stopped him in 7. He fought Brian Minto, who's a pretty well-known journeyman on the American heavyweight circuit. He also fought Sherman Williams from the Bahamas, who is one of the most durable journeymen in the world in heavyweight boxing. Very, very durable guy. Almost never gets stopped. I think he was only stopped once early on in his career, Sherman Williams. But apart from that, nobody stops him. They call him the Tank, and for good reason, because he's almost indestructible. And that's who Joseph Parker fought in his last fight. He went 10 rounds with Sherman Williams. So he's fighting guys who can take him the distance and give him the rounds. So far, so good with Joseph Parker. The thing about him is he's not one of those guys who instantly jumps out at you when you watch him. You know, I've watched quite a few of Parker's fights, like I said, over the past year or so. And even though he's done what I expected him to do, there was nothing that really jumped out at me other than his jab. I did like his jab. I do like that jab that he's got. But other than that, nothing has really jumped out, you know, with him. As far as I've seen, nothing's really jumped out about him. So I don't know. I'm definitely gonna continue keeping an eye on him. I think he's got some potential there. And another thing I do like is the fact that he's learning his trade away from the limelight. I know New Zealand is not exactly the biggest country in terms of population, so you know, fighters from New Zealand are not gonna get the same hype that guys from the UK or America are gonna get. But nonetheless, I like the way he's learning his trade away from the limelight. Less pressure on his shoulders so he can go out there and do his thing and really, you know, learn. And another thing as well that I like is that he's fought in a few different countries already. I think he's fought in America twice and he's also fought in Germany. So he's already out there traveling. He's not just fighting in New Zealand. He's out there traveling and fighting on different bills and what have you. So that's also a good thing. Definitely one to watch. If you ain't checked out Joseph Parker, just YouTube him and have a look at him. You'll see what I'm saying. Nice jab. Moves pretty well. Again, he's a good prospect. Hasn't put a foot wrong, but don't really think he has the X factor to me. You know, when I look at the guys out there, when I look at the prospects coming up, you people like Joshua and Deontay Wilder and Kubrat Pulev, and well, Pulev's a contender now, but you know, when I look at the heavyweight scene, most of these guys have got something about them. You know, maybe not so much Pulev apart from his jab, but certainly Wilder and Joshua, they've got something about them. You know, Joshua's got this athleticism and speed and strength, and Wilder's got this terrific punching power in his right hand, although People think he's hasn't got anything else. I guess we'll see if he fights Stavern. But nonetheless, they at least have something that jumps out at you. Whereas Parker don't. He don't have anything that's jumped out at me yet. And that's probably why I haven't been motivated to make a video about him up until now. It doesn't mean he's not a good fighter. It doesn't mean he won't go on to be a world champion maybe. But at this stage of his career, he looks good. He looks decent. But I haven't seen anything to really get me excited about him as a prospect, you know. But we'll see. Maybe he's just one of those dark horses, one of those guys who's going to learn his craft, Bernard Hopkins style. And, you know, when the time comes, he'll be able to school people. You know, we'll see. But drop your comments below. Let me know how you feel about Joseph Parker. Maybe you're more excited about him than I am. I'm certainly not underestimating him. Again, I have to reiterate. There are going to be people saying, "Hey, man, you're hating. You're underestimating him." I'm not underestimating him. He's 11-0. Right? He's 11-0. So he's got plenty to learn. He's got plenty of time. He's only 22 years old. He could go on to be a major player in the heavyweight division. But from what I've seen so far right now, he hasn't exactly blown me away with what I've seen. He seems decent, but nothing to really, you know, get me excited. So anyway, drop your comments below. This is Hatman. I'm out.